Introduction, Setting the Pace. In the year of our Lord 1242, or perhaps it was 43, for the records are somewhat unclear, a small kingdom lay nestled between low, rolling hills and a slow-moving, muddy river. This was the realm of King Aldric the Mild and his queen, Eleanor of Harrowford. Their castle stood not atop a mighty cliff, nor beside a roaring sea, but on a modest rise of land that was just high enough to avoid flooding during the spring rains. Its walls were made of stone, not the whitest stone, nor the blackest, but a gentle gray, weathered by years of wind and drizzle. The kingdom was not vast. One could, with steady walking, cross it from east to west in the span of 3 days. To the north were farmlands, to the south a thin stretch of forest, and in between villages with names that over the centuries have slipped into obscurity. The people were neither desperately poor nor remarkably wealthy. They lived, as many did in those days, in a steady rhythm of planting, harvesting, mending, and resting. The early life of King Aldric. Aldric was born in the cold month of January. His mother, Queen Isolde, noted in her diary that the snow that year was not deep but crusted with ice, and that the sound of church bells carried clearly over the frozen fields. His father, King Berengar, was a man of slow speech and deliberate movement, a habit which Aldric would inherit. From an early age, he displayed no great inclination toward battle, poetry, or statecraft. Instead, he enjoyed sitting by the window of the South Tower, watching the clouds pass. He listened patiently to the tales of old knights, though he rarely asked questions. When he was given a wooden sword at the age of 7, he carried it for a week and then quietly set it aside. The early life of Queen Eleanor. Eleanor was the daughter of Lord Harrowford, whose lands bordered Aldric's kingdom to the east. Her upbringing was one of gentle order, lessons in needlework, reading of the Psalms, and occasional trips to the local market where she would marvel at bolts of dyed cloth and small baskets of figs. She had a fondness for doves, keeping several in a dovecote behind her father's manor. It was said that she spoke softly but clearly, and that her hands were always warm. When the time came for her to be married, she did not protest the match to Aldric. In truth, she felt little excitement, but also little dread. The marriage and coronation. Their wedding was held on a cool spring morning. The church bells rang, not loudly, for the clappers had been wrapped in cloth to preserve the metal, and a modest crowd gathered. Aldric wore a tunic of muted blue, Eleanor a gown of pale cream. There were no grand feasts nor elaborate tournaments, but a simple meal of roasted fowl, bread, and honey was served in the great hall. The coronation followed shortly after. Aldric's crown was of gold, plain in design, with a single polished stone at the front. Eleanor's was lighter, set with small pearls. The archbishop, whose voice tended to trail off at the ends of his sentences, blessed them, and the people cheered in a measured, polite manner. The life in the castle. The castle itself was not overly large, but it was comfortable. There were 4 main towers, each with its own narrow spiral staircase. The great hall smelled faintly of wood smoke and wool. The kitchens were staffed by 5 cooks, who rotated duties so that no one grew overly tired. King Aldric's mornings began with bread soaked in warm milk, followed by a brief walk along the parapets. King Eleanor spent her early hours in the solar, working at embroidery while her ladies discussed minor matters of the household. The days were often quiet. The most frequent disturbances were the arrival of messengers bearing news of distant markets or the occasional request for a modest tax adjustment. The council meetings. Every second Tuesday, Aldric held council in the Great Hall. The lords and stewards would gather at the long table, their voices low and measured. Matters discussed included the repair of a wooden bridge over the southern brook, the rotation of grazing rights for sheep in the northern pastures, the replacement of a missing church bell rope in the village of Dunwell. Nothing was rushed. Each topic was given time to be considered from every angle. The meetings often ended with the sound of the steward clearing his throat and saying, "That will be all for now." Seasonal festivals. The kingdom's festivals were modest affairs. In spring, the people decorated the market square with garlands of early blossoms. In summer, they held a day of bread-baking contests. In autumn, there was a gathering for the tasting of new cider. Winter celebrations were indoors, with the playing of slow music and the telling of long, winding stories that often trailed off before reaching a conclusion. The passing years. As the years went on, Aldric and Eleanor remained steady in their habits. They walked together in the castle gardens, speaking quietly about the weather and the quality of that year's honey. Their children, 2 sons and a daughter, were raised in the same calm atmosphere. The kingdom did not grow, nor did it diminish. No great wars touched its borders. Occasionally, a rumor would spread of trouble far away, but it arrived like a distant echo and faded just as quickly. Reflections on a mild reign. In the 42nd year of Aldric's reign, a traveling monk wrote in his journal, "This is a realm where the days are gentle and the nights are calm. Here the grass grows evenly, the bells ring at the same hour, and the people age without a hurry.